Most fathers don't lose custody in a courtroom battle. They lose it quietly, through small decisions, overlooked details, and assumptions that seemed harmless at the time. And by the time they realize what happened, it's already too late. They didn't explode in anger. They didn't walk away from their kids. They simply trusted the system, or tried to keep the peace, or believed that being a good dad would be enough. But family court doesn't operate on fairness. It operates on evidence, paperwork, timing, and perception. And in that world, good intentions mean nothing if you make the wrong move too early. The hardest part? Most of the traps don't look like traps until they've already closed around you. This isn't about villainizing anyone. It's about exposing the legal pitfalls that quietly strip fathers of their rights without a fight. Because if you don't see them coming, you won't even know you're in danger until your child starts calling somewhere else home. Here are 5 legal traps that silently take custody from fathers who never saw it coming. If you're a dad, or you know one who's heading toward divorce or separation, this might be the most important thing you hear today. Trap 1 is agreeing to temporary orders that quietly become permanent. It starts off simple. You're stressed, try to avoid drama, and someone, maybe a lawyer, maybe your ex, suggests a temporary parenting plan. Something to just keep the peace until everything's sorted. So you agree. Maybe she gets primary custody for now. Maybe you settle for weekends and a midweek dinner. You tell yourself it's just a placeholder, that once the dust settles, you'll get something more balanced. But here's the trap. Judges don't like disrupting stability. Once a routine is in place, even if it was meant to be short-term, the court often treats it as the new normal. That temporary arrangement you agreed to without thinking becomes the blueprint for the final custody order. Suddenly, your weekends are permanent. Your voice is quieter, and the bond you wanted to build with your kids has been reduced to a handful of hours that the court now calls fair. Most fathers don't even realize the mistake until it's too late to fix. They think they're buying time, but what they're really doing is setting a precedent, one that gets used against them over and over. And it all started with one signature meant to keep things calm. But the damage doesn't stop there. Because even when you're showing up, loving your kids, and doing everything right, there's another silent mistake that wipes all of that effort off the record. Trap 2 is not documenting everything from day one. This one feels harmless until it isn't. Most fathers believe that being present, involved, and caring will speak for itself. They assume the court will recognize their effort, their consistency, their love for their children. But family court doesn't work off feelings. It works off facts. And facts, in that setting, mean paper trails. You could be the most engaged dad on earth, picking your kids up from school, taking them to doctor appointments, helping with homework every night. But if there's no documentation, none of it exists in the eyes of the court. Judges don't remember conversations. They read records. And if your ex shows up with calendars, text logs, school reports, and medical documents, while you show up with a story, you've already lost. Not because you're a bad father, but because you didn't play the game the way it scored. What most dads don't realize is that custody isn't just about presence. It's about proof. Every pickup, every drop-off, every missed visit, every communication should be tracked. Not in a paranoid way, but in a strategic, protective one. Because the second things go sideways and accusations start flying, you're going to wish you had dates, times, screenshots, and receipts. Especially when she claims you're unreliable, or not involved, or inconsistent. And you know it's not true, but can't prove it. Documentation isn't about being confrontational. It's about being ready. Because no matter how cordial things seem right now, custody battles can flip overnight. People get scared. Lawyers get aggressive. Promises get broken. And the only thing that can defend you is a record of reality. You were there. You showed up. You cared. But in court, if there's no record, it's like you never existed. And that leads directly into the next silent mistake. One that starts with a door closing and ends with a judge calling it abandonment. Trap 3 is moving out of the family home too soon. It sounds like the respectful thing to do, maybe even the smart thing. Things are tense, arguments are escalating, and you just want to avoid conflict. So you pack a bag, tell yourself it's temporary, and leave the house to give her space or keep things civil. But in the legal world, that decision carries weight most fathers never see coming. Because the moment you step out, the narrative shifts from partner trying to de-escalate to father who walked away. Courts look at who maintains the household, who stays with the children, and who provides daily stability. When you move out, even voluntarily, it can be interpreted as surrendering your role. You think you're keeping the peace, but on paper, it looks like you abandoned your family. Judges don't see your intention. They see where the kids stayed, who kept the routine going, and who physically left. And unless there's a documented agreement, that move out becomes Exhibit A in why you shouldn't be the primary parent. The consequences compound fast. Your absence sets a precedent. The kids are with her full-time now, so the court sees her as the more consistent caregiver. Even if you're involved every day, even if you call, text, visit, the simple fact that you don't live there becomes a strike against you. And once that's written into temporary orders, it gets echoed into permanent ones. The most painful part? Many men who move out still pay the mortgage or rent, still provide financially, still show up for their kids. But in legal terms, they've given up control. And once that dynamic is locked in, it's incredibly hard to reverse. So before you leave the house, even for one night, think long and hard. Because that one decision might echo louder than anything you say in court. And if you think a handshake agreement will protect you, the next trap is already waiting. Trap 4 is trusting verbal agreements without legal backing. In the early stages of separation, things can feel surprisingly calm. You and your ex might still be on speaking terms. Maybe you've both agreed not to involve lawyers yet. Maybe she says, you'll still see the kids every weekend. Or, let's keep it 50-50 until we figure things out. It feels like progress, like maturity. And in a perfect world, it would be. But here's the cold reality. Family court doesn't honor promises. It honors paperwork. And anything that isn't written, signed, and filed with the court might as well not exist. You can follow every word of the agreement, be present every weekend, split the holidays fairly, until one day, everything changes. Maybe there's a disagreement. Maybe she gets advice from someone else. Maybe she simply changes her mind. And suddenly, those weekends are gone. The door doesn't open. The calls don't get answered. And when you protest, she says, there was never anything official. Now you're standing in front of a judge, trying to explain a handshake deal that no one else can verify. She has the kids. She has the daily routine. And you have nothing in writing. The court sees consistency on her side, disruption on yours. And once again, you're starting from a disadvantage. Too many fathers fall into this trap because they want to keep things easy. They want to avoid conflict, avoid court, avoid turning love into legalese. But in doing so, they give away the only leverage they have. Not because they were lazy or disengaged, but because they trusted words over documents. Verbal agreements can disappear overnight. Court orders don't. And by the time you realize you need one, the damage is already done. That's why the next trap is just as dangerous and often just as delayed. It starts with hesitation and ends with regret that no one warned you about. Trap 5 is waiting too long to lawyer up. It's one of the most common and most costly mistakes fathers make during custody battles. At first, it makes sense. You don't want to escalate things. You tell yourself you'll be reasonable, that you and your ex can figure this out like adults. Maybe you're trying to save money. Maybe you're just hoping things won't get messy. So you wait. You avoid hiring an attorney. You delay getting advice. You think if you just stay calm and cooperative, the system will be fair. But family court doesn't reward patience. It punishes unpreparedness. And every day you wait to protect your rights is a day someone else is building a case against you. While you're trying to keep the peace, your ex might already be consulting attorneys, gathering documents, setting up custody narratives behind the scenes. By the time you realize things are shifting, it's already too late to catch up. The court has a version of the story, and you weren't the one who told it. Worse, many fathers show up to early hearings alone, thinking they'll just explain their side. But courtrooms don't operate on emotional honesty. They operate on legal precision. And one wrong word, one misunderstood statement, one missed deadline can tilt the case against you for good. Judges aren't there to sort out fairness. They're there to apply law. And if you don't have someone in your corner who knows how that law works, you're walking into a fight without a shield. Some men realize this only after losing major ground. Restricted visitation, supervised contact, or even complete removal from the decision-making process. All because they tried to be the reasonable one and waited too long to protect themselves. The truth is, getting a lawyer early isn't about starting a war. It's about making sure you don't lose one without ever throwing a punch. And in family court, the most dangerous thing you can do is nothing. In family court, the biggest losses don't always come from shouting matches or public blow-ups. They come from silence, delay, and misplaced trust. Most fathers who lose custody don't lose it because they were absent or unfit. They lose it because they didn't know the system, didn't document the right things, or assumed fairness would protect them. They believed that being a good dad was enough. That love would carry weight. That reason would be respected. But the truth is, custody battles aren't about emotion. They're about evidence. They're about decisions made early, often quietly, that carry long-term consequences. What makes these traps so dangerous is how subtle they are. Agreeing to a temporary arrangement that becomes permanent. Leaving the house to avoid an argument, only to be seen as abandoning your family. Trusting verbal promises that disappear when conflict arises. Delaying legal protection while the other side builds their narrative. These choices don't look like mistakes at first. They look like compromises, peacekeeping, maturity. Until the day you're sitting in front of a judge, being told your time with your child will now be limited, scheduled, or supervised, and all you can do is nod while regret tightens in your chest. But it doesn't have to be that way. Knowing these traps is the first step in avoiding them. The more prepared you are, the less you'll have to fight from behind. The more you document, the more you protect your role. And the sooner you get legal help, the harder it becomes for anyone to write you out of your child's life. If you're a father facing separation, don't wait for the system to wake you up. Understand it now. Prepare now. Because the most painful stories in family court don't come from bad dads. They come from good ones who didn't see the danger until it was too late.